Last year, a guy brought his car in for a grinding noise. 14 months after a full brake job, the inner pads were ground to bare metal. The outer pads still had half their life left. The shop told him he needed new pads, new rotors because the rotors were warped from the heat, and probably a new caliper. $800. Those grinding pads should have lasted 4 years. Instead, they lasted 14 months. The problem was not the pads. The problem was not his driving. The problem was 2 steel pins the size of your index finger that nobody lubricated when those pads went in. $1 worth of grease, 60 seconds of work. That step was skipped, and those pads were dead the day they went on. A brake industry training publication calls this exact failure the leading source of premature brake pad wear. Not aggressive driving, not cheap parts. A skipped step that takes less than a minute. Here is how your brakes actually work, and why what I just described is probably happening on your car right now. Most people picture their brakes like a fist squeezing from both sides, 2 pads clamping a rotor at the same time with equal force. That is what should happen. It is not how the mechanism works. Your brake caliper has 1 piston. 1. When you press the brake pedal, hydraulic pressure pushes that single piston outward, and it shoves the inner brake pad against the rotor. That is only half the job. For the outer pad to make contact, the entire caliper body has to slide inward. It has to float. It pulls the outer pad against the other side of the rotor from the opposite direction. 2 pins make that happen. 2 steel pins, each about the size of a thick pen, seated inside bores in the caliper bracket. The caliper rides on those pins the way a drawer rides on its slides. When the pins move freely, the caliper floats. Both pads clamp evenly, and your brakes work the way they were designed to. Those pins sit inside rubber boots filled with a thin film of silicone grease. The grease lets them glide. The boots keep water, road salt, and brake dust out of the bore. That is the entire system keeping your brakes balanced. 2 pins, 2 boots, a film of grease thinner than a coat of paint, and your $400 brake job is only as good as that film lasts. Now here is what happens when it does not. The grease dries out. On a car driven in any climate with salt, moisture, or temperature swings, so all of them, that factory grease starts breaking down within 2 to 3 years. The boots crack from heat cycling. Once moisture gets into the bore, corrosion starts on the pin. Resistance builds. The caliper stops floating freely. And from that moment forward, your brake pads are on a clock. Stage 1. Uneven wear. The inner pad, the one pushed directly by the piston, does most of the braking. The outer pad barely touches the rotor because the caliper cannot slide inward to pull it into contact. You do not notice. There is no warning light for this. No code, no sound. Just one pad grinding itself down while the other one sits there looking almost new. An owner on Bob is the Oil Guy, the largest independent oil analysis forum on the internet, posted photos documenting exactly this. Brake pads with 6,000 miles on them. Inner pads destroyed. Outer pads still had life. The last person to service the brakes did not grease the caliper pins. 6,000 miles on pads that should have lasted 40,000. That is not an outlier. That is the pattern across hundreds of forum posts on every make and model. Stage 2. Heat. A pin that is not sliding freely means the pad is dragging against the rotor even after you take your foot off the brake. Not hard enough to feel in the pedal, but hard enough to build heat with every revolution. That constant friction warps the rotor. You feel it now, a pulsing vibration in the brake pedal or the steering wheel when you slow down. You think you have warped rotors. You do. But the rotors were fine before the pins seized. The pins cooked them. And the whole time that pad is dragging, your engine is fighting a brake that will not release. Your fuel economy drops. You are paying for gas to overcome friction that should not exist. And here is where it stops being just about money. A caliper that is dragging on one side means your car is not stopping straight. Under hard braking, the kind you need in an emergency, the car pulls to the side that is gripping harder. Your stopping distance gets longer because one side of your brakes is not doing its job. This is a safety problem dressed up as a maintenance issue, and nobody warned you about it. Stage 3. Caliper death. The heat that warped your rotors also cooks the rubber boots sealing the pin bores. Once those boots crack, every puddle, every salt spray, every piece of road grime enters the bore and goes to work on the pin surface. Corrosion takes over. The pin does not just stick now, it welds itself to the bore. A poster on the Ford Truck Enthusiasts forum described a pin seizing so solidly during an elk hunt that it snapped when he tried to twist it out with a pipe wrench. A Duramax owner on a diesel forum documented replacing 3 rear calipers on his 2013 truck because every bottom pin was seized to the caliper body. Not stuck, fused. The caliper is scrap. Stage 4, the one that should make you angry. The shop replaces pads, rotors, and the caliper. $600 to $1,000 per axle. The replacement caliper, usually a remanufactured unit, arrives with a thin coat of factory grease on the pins. If the shop that installs it treats those pins the same way they treated the last set, which they will because it is the same shop running at the same speed, the cycle starts over. The day you drive off the lot, you are not buying brake pads. You are subscribing to brake pads. The pin that started all of it costs $3 to replace. The grease that would have kept it alive costs less than $1 per application. The brake job that ignored both costs $800 and lasts half as long as it should. So why does this keep happening? Tomorrow's Technician, a brake industry training publication, published a list of the top 10 brake job mistakes made by technicians. Number 1. Cleaning the caliper bracket slides. Number 2. Lubricating the guide pins. Their language on the pins is that failure to service the guide pins is the leading source of uneven pad wear. The 2 most common brake job mistakes in the entire industry are both lubrication and cleaning steps that add 5 minutes and generate 0 parts revenue. Wagner Brakes, the company that manufactures brake pads, publishes technical bulletins instructing shops to clean and lubricate every caliper bracket and guide pin during every brake service. Their own documentation calls failure to do this a major cause of brake noise, premature wear, and increased stopping distance. The pad manufacturer is telling shops how to make their product last longer. The shops skip it anyway. Here is the part that should genuinely bother you. Some brake pad kits come with a small packet of caliper pin grease inside the box. It is right there with the pads. The manufacturer included it because they know the pins need lubrication when pads go on. The tech opens the box, pulls out the pads, and throws the packet in the trash, or never notices it was there. The product is literally in the box. It still does not get used. This is not a conspiracy. Nobody conspired. The math just works against you. A flat-rate brake job pays the technician a fixed number of hours regardless of how long the work takes. Pulling both pins, cleaning the bores, inspecting the boots, applying fresh grease, and reassembling. That is 5 to 10 extra minutes per axle. On a job where the technician is racing the clock, those minutes come straight out of their paycheck. The step generates no parts sale, no line item on the invoice, and no labor charge. But the problems it prevents, the premature pad wear, the warped rotors, and the seized caliper, generate a full repeat brake job costing $400 to $800, plus a caliper replacement costing $300 to $500 extra. The step that prevents it earns the shop nothing. The failure it causes earns them everything. They do not skip it to hurt you. They skip it because the flat rate system does not pay for it, and the consequences pay for themselves. So let me show you how to check yours. Tonight, no tools, because if your last brake job skipped this step, the damage is already building. Drive your car for 15 or 20 minutes, normal driving. Then park it and carefully hold your hand 4 to 6 inches from each wheel. Do not touch. They will be hot. A sticking caliper makes one wheel noticeably hotter than the others. If you have a $15 infrared thermometer from Amazon or Harbor Freight, point it at each rotor through the wheel spokes. A 50 to 100 degree difference between the left and right side on the same axle means one caliper is dragging. Second check. Look at your wheels. If one front wheel is coated in black brake dust and the other is relatively clean, that is the side that is dragging. The pad is in constant contact with the rotor, grinding off friction material with every revolution. Same car, same driver, same roads. One wheel looks like it drove through a coal mine. Third check. If you can see the rotor through your wheel spokes, look at the surface. A healthy rotor is a uniform gray. A rotor that has been cooked by a dragging caliper shows blue or purple discoloration, heat staining from temperatures the metal was never supposed to reach. If one rotor has those marks and the other does not, you are looking at the damage a stuck pin already caused. If you drive a Camry, an Accord, a Civic, a Corolla, a RAV4, a CR-V, a Forester, an Outback, an Altima, a Sentra, if your car has disc brakes, and virtually every car sold in the last 20 years has them on the front at minimum, it has slide pins. This is not a one model problem. This is every car with disc brakes on the road. Now here is what to do about it, and the honest part, because this is where trust lives. The grease matters, and the wrong grease is genuinely worse than no grease at all. Regular lithium grease, chassis grease, petroleum-based grease, they swell the rubber boots. Swollen boots lock the pin inside the bore. This is extensively documented. Subaru Forester owners, Kia Forte owners, BMW owners, all reporting seized pins caused by boots that swelled from the wrong lubricant. The shop used grease from the wrong tube and created the exact problem the grease was supposed to prevent. The right product is silicone-based, rubber-compatible brake caliper lubricant. Sil Glide by AGS. $8 to $12 a tube at any parts counter. One tube lasts years. You use a pea-sized amount per pin. 2 pins per caliper. 2 front calipers on every car, plus 2 rear calipers if your car has rear disc brakes. The cost per application is genuinely under $1. When to do it, every single time brake pads go on your car. Every time. If you are doing your own brakes, pull the pins out. They should slide with finger pressure. If they do not, that is your problem right there. Clean them with brake cleaner, inspect the boots for cracks or swelling, thin coat of silicone grease on the pin and inside the bore, slide them back in. The grease should be clear or translucent, the pin should glide like it is on ice. 60 seconds per pin. That is what a properly serviced brake looks like. If you are paying a shop, ask them before they start. Ask, are you servicing the caliper slide pins? If they hesitate or look at you funny, you now know more about their brake job than they expected you to. One honest limitation: if the pins are already pitted and corroded, rough to the touch, visible rust scoring on the surface, grease will not save them, replace them. A caliper hardware kit with new pins and new boots runs $10 to $15 at AutoZone or Napa. That is the $15 fix instead of the $300 caliper replacement. But if you let it go long enough that the pin bore inside the bracket is scored, the bracket needs replacing too, and now you are back to the $600 job that $1 of grease would have prevented 3 years ago. Grease does not resurrect dead pins. It keeps healthy ones alive. Prevention is the only move here. The brake pad manufacturers publish the instructions. The training publications rank it the number 1 and 2 most common mistakes. The grease is on the shelf at every parts counter in the country. Some pad manufacturers put it right in the box with the pads. And every flat-rate brake job in America skips it because 5 minutes of prevention does not show up on the invoice. Your brake pads should last 40 to 50,000 miles. If you are replacing them at 15 or 20,000, the pads were never the problem. The brake job that installed them was the problem. Next time pads go on, yours or anyone's, 60 seconds per pin, $1 worth of grease. That is the difference between brake pads that last and brake pads that were already dying the day they went on.